Hello everyone! Despite the fact that the bodies of the first crossovers were frankly upset by uneven gaps and skewed doors in the openings, dealers even had to deal with fitting body elements before selling. However, since 2016 the situation has improved. The cars began to roll off the assembly line in a much more attractive form. The body itself is reliably protected from corrosion, but the paintwork let us down. Chips and scratches quickly appear, the paint and the external chrome decor become cloudy. Many owners usually armor the front of the case with a protective film. You also have to install additional sound insulation. Standard often does not suit demanding users. Especially a lot of complaints about the wheel arches. Some interior details do not please with the durability either. The steering wheel, gear lever and front panel plastic are quickly wiped off. Due to the ingress of dirt into the guides, the windows of the front doors and the electric sunroof jam in the guides. In order not to get into expensive repairs, they must be cleaned periodically, otherwise you will have to change the burnt-out electric motor. Due to the weak tightening of the bolts of the door cards, the window mechanism becomes unusable and eventually becomes unusable. It also irritates the creak of the steering column and the steering shaft cardan shaft when turning the steering wheel. A trifle but unpleasant. However, after the last restyling, most of the jumps have been fixed. But there are practically no questions about the motors. Even the base 1.2-liter turbocharged 4 is nothing to worry about yet. Complaints to the motor, at least. Yes, and consumption greatly pleases economical owners. Most owners have enough engine thrust in all driving modes. Only the most active can complain about the lack of power at top speeds. Despite the modest volume, a metal chain is installed in the motor in the timing drive. It will usually need to be replaced by 200,000 kilometers. The 2-liter aspirated also has a timing chain drive. And there is also a phase change system at the intake. And there are no hydraulic compensators in the valve drive. It would seem that there should be no problems. However, the chain of the motor can stretch after hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The main thing is not to miss this moment when a clanging sound appears in the engine, or it starts to start badly. And at some point, the engine simply will not start. The camshaft position sensor will work due to the departure of the gas distribution phases. The worst thing is, if the extended chain jumps a couple of T's and the pistons meet the valves, you are guaranteed to repair the blockhead. With age, the motor can dry. Oil and coolant leak through the seals and seals. Since instead of traditional gaskets, a sealant is used here, which usually dries out after 5 to 6 years. The problem is solved by applying fresh sealants to the mating surface of the parts. And further, if you decide to change the spark plugs yourself on a 2-liter engine, be very careful. The fact is that the walls of the candle are very thin and can burst with excessive force. And then the coolant enters the combustion chamber, and the exhaust gases enter the cooling system. Repair of the head of the block or engine is provided to you. For both engines, for preventive purposes, dealers recommend flushing the throttle assembly and injection nozzles every 30 to 40,000 kilometers. It definitely won't get worse, but extend the life of candles and ignition coils. Interventions in the 6-speed mechanics will be required only after 60,000 kilometers, when it comes time to change the oil in it. The rest of the box is absolutely reliable and unpretentious. The same regulation exists for the Jetco GF016E variator, which, unlike the MCP, is burdened with some sauce. To be fair, Nissan's continuously variable transmission has become more durable lately. To prolong the life of this expensive unit, minimize sleeping in snow or in a mud bath. In this state, not only the variator pushing belt wears out quickly, but also the electromagnetic clutch that connects the rear wheels. The fact is that even with careful handling, the service life of this CVT push belt rarely exceeds 150,000 kilometers, and you can't pull with the replacement. A worn belt will inevitably leave scarves on the surface of the conical pulleys, and it is sold for the price of 2 push belts. Here also consider, together with the belt, the bearings of the drive and driving shaft are usually updated. At risk is also a stepper motor that changes the gear ratios of the variator. By and large, there are no pitfalls in the suspension, only random shallows. The first to change in the chassis, as a rule, are the stabilizer struts and bushings. These consumables usually withstand 30,000 to 50,000 kilometers, but shock absorbers will have to be updated 2 to 3 times less often after hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The ball bearings and silent blocks of the levers hold about the same amount, but the support bearings of the struts and the front wheel bearings are not durable enough. On the first cars, they asked replacements at 40,000 to 60,000 kilometers. After restyling in 2016, their resource has increased markedly. However, in the steering, the rubber seal of the steering shaft is still a little annoying with squeaks. Replacing it for a long time doesn't help. It is usually lubricated with silicone grease. Replacing it for a long time does not help. And in the brake system, the caliper of the front mechanism is jammed. The good news is that inexpensive repair kits can be found on sale. As you can see, a used Nissan Qashqai will by no means ruin its second owners. If you do not want to experiment with a CVT, you can look for a modification with a manual transmission. True, this will be a version with a base 1.2-liter turbo engine. If you want to become the owner of a variant with a 2.0-liter engine, you will have to be content exclusively with CVT, which, by the way, has recently become much more reliable. If you have or had such a model, share information about what and how it breaks in the comments.